Take two. Welcome to Easy to Read Deep Thoughts. My name is Jonathan Geyer, and my special guest is Andrew Crapuchettes. And holy cow, we just went through this introduction just a moment ago, and then I realized it's not recording. So this is take. Oh my gosh, that is an ironic introduction to what I said before. I'm just going to dive right into it. So a moment ago, I was describing how this is how Andrew and I got to know each other. He was the first, RedBalloon was the first company that I introduced, that I presented my algorithm to. It's an epic story. I just bombed. So Andrew invested some major resources. He had his executives in there. They were all wearing ties. He had a bunch of people. He invested into my presentation. I broke my algorithm. I broke the automations 5 minutes before we went live. I had nothing. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know how to respond. It was awesome.
It was pretty funny though. I'll be honest, right? It's just like, well, nothing's working. Never mind. It was nothing. We've all been in that moment, right? And I think that's as I've said before, don't believe that you live in a perfect world. And anybody out there who's trying to start a business, trying to do sales, trying to get a job, trying to raise kids, and lead a family or whatever it is, don't assume you're going to be perfect, because if you do, you're just going to be disappointed in yourself all the time. And you just got to pick yourself up. And how someone responds to something going poorly is more important than whether they do it right the first time.
Let's keep running on that. We're already talking about the theme of my article here. So both you and I are boxers, or we've been boxers, and there's some unique lessons that come from eating punches. And one of them is, you just spoke to it, you don't know. You don't know where it's going to, every punch that gets hit, every punch that lands is a punch you didn't see coming. Why? Because you'd block it if you saw it. Right? It's planning for the unknown. I'm just making this up as we go right now.
But I think that's an important point. And I think it's something that is easy for people to forget, because you think, well, you see people on social media and they appear to have some sort of perfect life, that everything is just going great. They've never made a mistake. They've never had a stumble. They've never fallen down and had to pick themselves up. They've never had their kid, oh man, I screwed up on that one, or screwed up in business, or and that's just not true. That's a lie. All of us are going to have mistakes, have stumbles, and really that's the American vision. Is there's a lot of people in America who we were built by people who maybe failed somewhere else and were coming for a land of promise. Maybe people who were not surviving very well or thriving on the East Coast and decided, I'm going to head west. I'm going to go build an adventure for my family. I'm going to build an adventure for my legacy. And it was super hard, right? And people died, and it was, and it was miserable in a lot of different ways. But that's actually what shapes people. That's what shapes stories. You think of every great story that's out there, and we're talking about the American story today, but every great story that was out there, you think of C.S. Lewis or Tolkien or all the great storytellers, it generally doesn't you did everything perfect and then it was fine. That's a boring story, just to be honest, right? And when we're in that story, when we're living it, we really want the boring story. I made 100% on every single test that I ever took, and but that's not actually how the world works. It actually, you fail and you figure out why you failed, what you need to do differently so you don't fail in the future, and then you make adjustments. You pick yourself back up. You recover from that punch that just got landed on your nose, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna do better next time. I'm gonna continue to adjust. I'm gonna exercise. I'm gonna make my neck stronger so I can handle punches. I'm gonna do more sit-ups so I can handle the gut punches of a boxing match. But that is really the American story at the end of the day, and it's what every great story is. It's someone who maybe doesn't have the natural ability, who decides, I need to go do something great. They fail at it initially, and then it's that moment, right? It's that moment where you say, okay, I just failed. What am I going to do? How am I going to respond? I can either respond by saying, this is just not my thing, I'm going to walk away. And I've seen plenty of people do that, unfortunately.
Cry.
Right? Cry. Or you can say, okay, I was put on this planet for a reason. I've got work to do, and I am not just going to go limp and sit on the couch and watch sports and drink beer the rest of my life. I need to go out and do great things. And Jonathan, you know this. This is part of my story. I was fired from my CEO position at a large tech company. It was a great job. I made a ton of money. I really enjoyed my job. I love the people I worked with. I love the customers. I love what we were doing. And my board was basically like, you need to walk away from who you are, from your values, or you're simply not going to be allowed to continue to run this business. And I'm like, I can't walk away from my values. And so I got kicked out of the business that I really loved. And like, that was a moment I could have decided, you know what, I've got enough money. I'm just going to play golf and ride off in the sunset. No one will ever know what's going on with Andrew Crapuchettes, which is fine. It's not about me. But my wife was awesome, and my kids were awesome, and my community was awesome. And they're like, no, you need to pick yourself up and go out and do something great, because God's given you these skills and abilities, and you should use them to bless other people. So anyway, that's a long discussion on this topic, but it is the American story of people who have failed, picking themselves up, finding a new land, doing something difficult. I heard a economist recently. They said the only difference between what's happened in America and what's happened in a lot of other countries is you look back at the Roaring '20s, and then you have the Great Depression. You have World War II and kind of the reinvention of our economy after that. You look at all of these kind of inflection points in America, and many other countries around the world would hit these inflection points and kind of slowly kind of disintegrate and not really do anything, right? Whereas America has this history of reinventing themselves, of saying, okay, well, that didn't work, so I'm going to strap in, figure something else out, and grow from there. And I think we're actually in an inflection point right now in America. And I think it's going to be really interesting if we can figure out who we are all over again, reinvent ourselves, and then succeed and grow.
Let's keep going with this, because we're already on point with the summation of my article. Yep. And I was picturing you. RedBalloon recently posted something. I don't know. It was a Pioneer next to a wagon out in a prairie. But I was deep diving on that, just like empathetically trying to walk in that shoes. Like, and this speaks to RedBalloon. Like, what kind of mindset, what kind of ideology would that person have? It's not, I'm going to sit down and wait for things to get better. It's not an option. Like, it's right. First off, let's interrupt me any point in time. But like, who would choose to do that in the first place? I'm getting goosebumps as we talk. That is a big deal.
It is a big deal, right? And I had somebody recently tell me, hey, I can't find a job. I'm like, you know what? When the settlers moved west, were there any jobs? And they're like, well, no. I'm like, was there a lot of work? And they're like, well, yeah, like survival work. There's work everywhere. And I'm like, okay, well, there's always work to be done. And sometimes when you work really hard and you bless other people, it turns into a job. But don't be so obsessed with a job, because a job is, and you got to support your family. You've got to pay your bills. And so you need a job. You need something that's paying you to do, but always be working. And I think we've lost this mindset. Everyone's looking for a job. They're not looking for work. Looking for work is actually an interesting thing, because when you work hard, you do something hard, it builds dignity into a person. And you see this in sports. Yep. And we're going to get back to that, the wagon going west. You see this in sports. If you go into a game and your team, or in a boxing match, and you are way better than the other person that you're boxing with, or your team is way better than the other team, and you beat them, it doesn't bring any dignity. It's like, okay, great.
It's almost embarrassing. It's like, I'm sorry.
Right? Yeah, I kind of just did that, right? Yeah. But when you go up against someone who's better than you, when you go up and say, you know what, this is really, really hard. This is not a gimme. This is a stretch. This is going to take everything I have to beat this person or this other team. That builds dignity in a person. That builds dignity in a team. And when you see that at work as well, when you, as a group of people, when you rally together and accomplish something that's very, very difficult, that changes you. It changes who you are, changes your story, and it builds dignity into individuals. And so when we try and avoid work, or we don't do hard things in America anymore, or anywhere in the world, we're losing that dignity generating activity. And that's back to, the picture that we put of those pioneers going across the country. Like they were looking for freedom, they were looking for land, they were looking for opportunity, all of that. But what they were building is they were building dignity into themselves and their kids. And you talk about in the article a little bit, like sometimes they got killed, right? Snakes
Yeah.
bite you, fall in a river, you drown your horse, and we've all played Oregon Trail.
That's exactly what I was picturing as you talked.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Right. Those things happen. But, if you think back, would you like your grandkids to think of you as the person who sat on the couch and did easy things, or the person who went out and changed the world, did hard things? And it's like, well, of course I want the latter, but you have to go do them. Right. And in the moment, they're not pleasant. Right. I'm sure when you're on that Oregon Trail and you're trying to ford a river with your kids and your wagon and nothing's going right, it's like, what am I doing? This is miserable. But that's how you succeed. You go out and you do hard things, you pick yourself back up and you go after it. So, and that's really the message that we want to give at RedBalloon. We want to have people, do hard things, succeed or not, sometimes fail, and then go out and pick themselves back up and do it again, and then go be successful and do great things.
I'm gonna set you up a little bit here. So I'm a visual thinker, and I was kind of thinking of it on a bell curve. What's the ideology, mentality of the average employee, worker right now today, knowing that culturally you spoke to, I'm trying to recall it, I was active listening, but you spoke to ease, or I'm not sure how you said it, but comfort or whatnot, like not doing the hard things, like trying to always find the path of least resistance, which is a normal default of perception. But culturally, like that's it's becoming more so like that, that if it's not easy, I'm not going to do it. I believe that's coming more and more so. So there's on a bell curve, I consider that the mean. Doing hard things because they're hard is not the mean. It's an outlier, right? Yep. So, and I'm setting up RedBalloon here. You're not going for the mean. You're not going for that person. Your entire brand is set up towards those more unique, the more rare, the diamonds in the rough type of employees, eh?
Yes, that's exactly right. When you're an employer, and we all know this, right? You talk to a CEO of a company, and they always say, "My people are my most important asset." I'm like, okay, do you really believe that? Is that true? And in their heart of hearts, they do believe that, because your people are the ones who are going to interface with your customers, who are going to innovate, who are going to do great things for your organization. And if you have people who are not aligned with what you're trying to accomplish, then they're actually just a traitor within your midst, right? And look, you don't have everyone, not everybody has to totally agree on things. In fact, we encourage people, like, find people with, diverse ideas, diverse point of view, diverse experience. That actually builds innovation within your team, because you're not just all lockstep thinking exactly the same way.
Yes, man.
But you do need to not hire. That's a double negative. Anyway, you need to hire people who actually think what you're trying to accomplish globally is a good thing, right? They need to believe that capitalism is a good thing. They need to believe that what you are doing as an organization, as a company, is a positive good for the world. And if they're simply there to get a paycheck and they hate their job and they hate your company, then you are going to fail eventually. I don't know what it's going to look like or when it's going to look like. And that's just not what you want. And you're not going to have a joyful work environment, right? When and we all know that employee that you have to walk on eggshells around you.
Oh my God.
Right. And they get offended by every little thing. Like, nobody wants
call the police. Like,
yeah, right. Exactly. So that's what RedBalloon does. We help businesses find people who want to work. They're not just looking for a job. They're looking for work. And they're looking for work that's hard, that is builds dignity, as we talked about earlier. And they are going to build your culture, not tear it down. And so RedBalloon does this in a bunch of different ways. But if there's only one thing I want you to remember from this, is if you need to find a job where you can live and be free, that's what RedBalloon does. And if you're an employer and you want to grow your team with people who are awesome, then RedBalloon basically is the only solution out there to do that for you. And we do it in a bunch of different ways. And we have wild amount of success with thousands of employers. So you're not alone. And it's really, really fun.
I like it. Oh my gosh, supporting that, observationally supporting that, like no discrete data required. Your brand, like you've leaned into this brand in every which possible way. So functionally speaking, there again, observationally, functionally speaking, what does that mean? That means that you're attracting that type of ideology. You're attracting that person. So when you promote that you have that, how could it not be true? Right?
That's
Because yeah, like it's got to
No,
be true.
RedBalloon, we have over 150,000 unique visitors every single month, and most of
Oh,
those are
nice.
job seekers looking for opportunities to be free in the workplace. And these are people who want to work hard, right? They see it as not a job, they see it as work. They see it as something where they can support their family, they can build dignity, but they can drive value for the organization they're working for. They think capitalism is a good thing, and they are totally fine with you as the business owner actually making money. And when you have that mindset within your employee base, then you're in this amazing battle to try and outgive your employees, and your employees are trying to outgive you. And I think we've
It's a
gotten to this
team.
very confrontational mindset within the workplace today. But I think that we don't need to be there. We haven't been there for many years, except for the last couple of years. And all of my employees here at RedBalloon, and we've got quite a few employees because we do a lot of work for employers. All of them, like, you can leave anytime you want if you don't love this job, because we are doing great work. And when you lean into your brand values like that, you're just going to attract the right kind of people. We help a lot of employers build their employment brand. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but and
It's a
Jonathan,
thing.
you
Yeah.
talk about our branding, and your article's talking about we're not afraid to talk about expansion and pioneering spirit and hard work and all those
Yes,
kind of
sir.
things. Well, that's our brand. Well, an employment brand is kind of an interesting thing, because if you're an employer who's trying to hire today, you need to be thinking about your employment branding, because it is actually a tight labor market for good employees. It's hard to find good people. And so you think about branding when you're trying to sell a customer on your product. The first time they see your brand, they instantly forget it because it's not cemented in their brain at all, right? And the second time, that also happens, and the third, and the fourth, and maybe by the seventh or the 10th or the 50th time that they see your brand, they're like, "Oh, I recognize that. Maybe I should go figure out what they do, and I should go use their services," right? And we all know this, right? Marketing 101. You need to be out in front of people again and again and again and again. Well, if you want to hire great people, you need to use the exact same strategy, and that's your employment brand. Why should people want to come and work for you? And how do you consistently be in front of them so when they have that bad experience with their current boss and think, I need to find something else, they think, what was that awesome company that I saw their brand and it was, man, it looked like a really fun place to work. I'm going to go check them out, right? That's your employment brand that you need to be building all the time. So we're going to help businesses build their employment brand. We're going to help them with their talent network. The concept of a talent network is just like marketing. If you have an email marketing list and you're reaching out to customers on a consistent drip period, you've got them in a cadence, all of those things. Well, how do you do that for employees as well? How do you build a list of people who are super fans of your employment brand, and they're going to use and then they want to say, look, put me on your talent network so that you can kind of keep me updated when there's opportunities out there. And that's how you keep that brand in front of them. That's how you continue to kind of make sure that they know what you're doing as an employer. So that's your talent network and your employment brand. Those are two of the most powerful tools that employers can use, and we have great technology to make that really easy to do here at RedBalloon.
Awesome. Do you know who Alex Ramosi is, or have you read any of
I
those books?
do. Yes.
Oh my God! So I've been geeking out on that guy for years
Yeah.
here, and I think you just spoke to that because you don't want to be a commodity, and if you're not leading with an employer brand, well, then it's going to be a paycheck, right? And that's empathetically walking in the candidate's shoes. Odds are they're only showing up to see how much they can make, and that's not what you want, because then that's where all the negatives come from, and all the whatever. So you're promoting. How does he say value? You're leading with the value instead
Lead
of
with value. And employers forget that their employment brand is something they need to be marketing. If you want to get the best employees, you need to be the employer of choice when everybody thinks about where am I going to go get a new job. If I hate my job or I don't love my job, where should I think about getting a new job? If you are top of mind for them, that means you have a great employment brand. And if you build that, you will get the best people, and not even the most expensive people, but the best people, if that makes sense.
And it's different. It's not the same thing, and that's the commodity thing I think he's speaking to also. Like, yeah, you can get somebody that's awesome at their job, but then they steal everything out of the office fridge, and then they take as much time off as possible, right? Like some people are just a-holes. It's a thing, and it's hard. It's a hard thing to measure for.
It really is. And that's the other thing that RedBalloon does. We come alongside employers. Like if you think, man, I'm not hiring very often, and so I don't have a lot of reps in doing interviews, in screening candidates, and sourcing candidates, we'll actually do a full recruitment process for you, and come alongside and make sure that you are only hiring people who are going to be a great value alignment for your business, which is going to save you a ton of money. And Jonathan, you know this. You think about, going back to our original, the Oregon Trail, a mistake on the Oregon Trail, we took the wrong path. We're now in the mountains and it's winter. We're all dead, right? And so,
eating your buddy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So when it comes to hiring, a bad hire, a misfire on the hiring process will cost you in America today tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Could sink the whole ship.
It can sink the whole ship. I actually talked to an employer in California, and he hired a $15 an hour employee who, after 3 weeks, he's like, this person is terrible. They are destroying their culture. They're hard to work with. And so he just goes to her and says, hey, we're going to need you to go. And she's like, I'm not going to go, or you're going to pay me a lot of money to go because I think this is discrimination. He's like, it's not discrimination. You're just a bad employee. Anyway, he didn't do everything perfectly right. And it turned out that he lost his whole business because of that $15 an hour employee. 75% of employers in the last 5 years have had a labor-based lawsuit in America. I'll repeat
COVID.
that.
Oh my God.
75%. It's crazy. So anyway, that's what we also help you avoid. We're going to help you avoid the pain and anguish that is associated with making a bad hire and everything that's connected with that.
So my last W-2 position was back. I was working at whatever. I was leading 30 computer techs back when the COVID restrictions first, or the pandemic. I'm not sure if I can say that SEO wise. Whatever. When those restrictions came into place, oh my God, it was a nightmare. Just a nightmare because you couldn't force people to come to work, and when they were at home, they kind of had the. I don't want to be too pointed when I say this, but oh my gosh, my hairline went back a half inch because you couldn't guarantee if anybody was going to show up. But customers still show up. They still, they've already paid for the product. Where's it going to be at? And it was, I'm getting goosebumps as we talk. It was a nightmare. It was a tough
moment. Jonathan, I don't know if I've told you, but there's this whole trend. So it used to be that there was a trend that everyone talked about. It's called underemployment. Basically, you have a bachelor's degree from a college, and yet you're a barista because you can't find a job that matches your experience or your education. It's called underemployment. It happens all the time. Now there's this concept called overemployment. And there's a Reddit channel with 300,000 people on it that talk about their overemployment. Overemployment means I work from home and I have not just one job, I have 2 or 3 or 4 full-time jobs. I'm taking a full-time salary from all of these different businesses. I have a laptop set up for each one of them, and I'm just responding to Teams and Zoom and Slack and just kind of moving the ball forward as little as possible while taking 4 full-time salaries. And that's what they call overemployment. And I think that's a trend.
It's a real thing.
Unfortunately, a lot of government employees were overemployed. They were working from home, doing 2 full-time jobs or more. And there's this huge group of people that brag about the fact that they do this. Well, that's really just stealing from your employer. And those aren't the kind of people you want. You want people who see work as a good thing, not just a job, right? And I want to give that kind of distinction.
It matters. It matters.
Right? It really
How
does.
the hell do you quantify it? It's not easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
totally.
keep going. Sorry, I cut you off. Keep going on that.
No. That's it. It's the difference between people who want a job and people who want work. And RedBalloon helps people, helps employers who want to find employees who actually want to work. They see work as a good thing. They want to move the ball forward for their customers. So we are super gratified to be part of that story. And that's what our branding is, right? And our branding is all around work is a good thing. Don't get a terrible employee, get a good employee. And we say some things that maybe are a little bit controversial. And we said quite a bit, during some of those earlier mentioned restrictions back in, 2020 and 21. But the thing is, you got to live your values out loud. And when you do that, you build an incredibly strong employment brand, an incredibly strong brand. And that's what we've been able to do just by being brave, by being courageous, and living our values out loud.
That's the riches are in the niches. Oh,
Right.
I had a more witty thought to that. Oh, lost it. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we haven't read any of this article yet, but I'm okay with that because we're touching on the theme of it. Let me see if I can softball another one here. Like I am a fan of RedBalloon and what you're doing, right? So that's what's playing out in my mind right now. Yeah. So
I think, I mean, Jonathan, I'll and I'm going to have a hard stop. I got to run to another thing here in a little bit. I want to close with a couple of thoughts. We have an opportunity in America, and we're kind of in this interesting moment in America, and that's part of the reason we're kind of in our branding at RedBalloon leaning into the historic American work ethic, the historic American pioneering spirit.
I noticed
the
that
historic American, drive to make things better, not just for yourself, but for other people, because we have a moment in America where we need to kind of rethink who we are. We need to kind of revive ourselves, wake up a little bit. And I think if we do that, we're not only going to be, returned to kind of that position of the greatest nation on earth, but when America is strong, the whole world is secure. And I know that sounds arrogant, and I'm sorry that if it bothers people that I say that, but there's a reason that world trade has worked since World War II. That pirates just are an anomaly. They're not something that's normal. The U.S. Navy has basically kept the world's oceans free, and it has allowed commerce to happen. And capitalism is the system that has pulled billions of people out of abject poverty around the world. And the free trade and the or at least a reasonable trade between countries all around the world generates wealth, and it allows for capitalism to thrive. And capitalism is the system that is allowing cities to build, is allowing farmers to be more efficient, is allowing for goods and services to pass around the world. And the U.S. has, with our desire to, whether good or bad, some of the things we've done, but with our Navy, we have kept the planet fairly free and the oceans fairly free. And what that has done is that has been a huge blessing for the whole world. And so if America can get their spending under control, if America can, kind of remember who they are and stop pushing on these ridiculous and silly things that have nothing to do with peace or prosperity, but instead the latest political correctness. If we can get back to what made America great in the first place and kind of reinvent ourselves yet again, then the planet will be blessed by that. And at the end of the day, Jonathan, you and I, 100 years from now, I hope we'll both be dead. Nothing personal, but
I'll be a robot. No worries.
Yeah, I'm out of here, right? But I want to leave a legacy for my kids and for my grandkids, a legacy of freedom, a legacy of courage, where we went out and did stuff, and we left America better than we found it, and America has a positive impact on the world. Not all of the decisions being made right now are going to be right, and that's back to this original theme we came into, right? Our current president is doing his best. He's probably going to make some mistakes. People in his cabinet are going to make mistakes. I actually met with a couple of his cabinet members recently. They are good people trying to do their best work, and they're not going to be perfect. But what they are going to do is they're going to have the right mindset around doing the right thing for other people. And if you do that, it's going to work out just fine. So whether you're a boxer or whether you're a pioneer, don't assume the world's perfect. Go out and do stuff. You're going to fail. Don't let that get you down. Pick yourself up and go do something great. And if you do that, you're going to leave a legacy for your kids. You're going to leave a legacy for your community, something bigger than just yourself. And that's my big encouragement for everyone who's listening.
We are not going to top that. That is a perfect ending. Let's stop it there because that was awesome. Mic drop. Yep.
There it is.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Andrew.